Did I ever tell you guys about the time a building burned down while I was at work? No? Well, you hang on just 1 second. We'll talk about how that happened. This story takes place at another one of the private schools that we did security at. Not the same one as the Moose, but a different one. This one had even less locked doors. This was a private school that sat on top of a mountain, middle of the winter. And basically, all we had to do at this school was just kind of walk through and make sure there's no students hanging out in places they weren't supposed to. And there's some pretty high up students, students of lawmakers and all kinds of other government people. So they wanted to make sure that no, I guess, lack of better words, bad people were getting into the school and taking these kids or whatever. After the patrol was over, just kind of drove around the property, make sure nothing crazy was going on. We had one spot that we could sit and see pretty much the majority of the property, both entrances off the main road, or what they call the main road, which was just a dirt road that was about 15 minutes from the nearest town. Needless to say, spent most of the night in this one spot until you could see everything. But this time I was a supervisor, and I was working a shift, but there was a on-call supervisor as well. And we would spend most of this downtime, kind of going over what was happening around our sites, planning out the scheduling for call-out stuff and all that. So after my patrol, I was on the phone with him, and about 10 minutes into the conversation, he tells me he's got another call coming in from the answering service. So he puts me on hold and comes back just a quick moment later, and he goes, Dan, fire department is looking for you. I was like, okay, well, that's kind of weird, but okay. What's the callback number? And just as he starts giving me the callback number, I was looking out the windshield, and I could see this orange glow coming from kind of over the hill of this property we were on, the school property. So I hung up with him right away and gave the fire department a call as I drove over to this area. And sure enough, there was a cabin that was in the woods. It wasn't a building that we checked. It was kind of like an off building, just little cabin. Wasn't anything people usually stayed in very often. And when they did, there was staff members with them. Strange, very strange school. Needless to say, this little cabin was on fire. Here we are, dead of winter. Both driveways are pure ice. Nice tall or steep inclines. So as I'm on the phone with the fire department, I'm trying to explain to them which driveway to come in that would keep them or get them closer to the building safer with all this ice. And they get there and they do put the fire out pretty quick. Luckily, there was nobody in the building. The longest part was them trying to get to the cabin because, like I said, it was winter and people don't usually use it, so there was no path cleared and all that. As I mentioned, they got the fire out, and then they started doing their little investigation to figure out what happened. Apparently, someone was in the building during the day and somehow turned on some propane lights on the outside of the building. I've never even heard of propane lights. Apparently, it was something they used back in the day, and apparently still had some on this building. So anyways, somehow the propane lights caught the building on fire and burned it down. This building was probably, I don't know, maybe 200 square feet. It was pretty small, a little bit, maybe a little bigger than that, but it was a very small building. And again, there was nobody in there, no injuries, all that. So once the fire department cleared, then the administrator was actually on site. A lot of the staff stayed on site just because of how far out this school was. And, naturally I didn't get in any trouble because it wasn't a building we were even aware of, let alone watched or checked, anything like that. I believe they ended up rebuilding it later down the road, but nonetheless, that is how a building caught on fire while I was at work. Just another one of the crazy things that happens to me while I'm on shift. I appreciate everybody watching, or listening in this case. A little bit of scenery view here. And we'll catch you next week with probably the story of when I almost got my eyes cut out with some scissors. Yeah, that was a pretty drastic one. So come back and we'll tell you that one.